It's lager time! Yay! Lager time. Poems, stories and thoughts. By me, Paul Cree. Who else? Greetings, bonjour, what's happening? Welcome to Lager Time. Legions of lager lights, grab your tins, grab your bottles, grab your pints. My name is Paul Cree, and Lager Time is my fairly regular podcast and blog where I share bits of work that I've been working on, bits of writing, sometimes stories, sometimes poems, sometimes thoughts and sometimes music. Welcome. It's been a wee while, probably about a month almost. Well, I'm recording this on Sunday, bank holiday weekend in England, aka not a nice time for freelance people. But for most ordinary people, it means it's a day off on the Monday. So unless you work in the service sector, of course, or health workers or whatever. But for most people, they get an extended day off. Lots always events and that happening on bank holiday weekend. It's the Notting Hill Carnival up in London. I used to go when I was younger, went every year for many years. Probably a bit too nuts for me these days, but yeah. Oh, so how is everything out there in Lagerland? It was a very wet day yesterday down here in Kent. I've been a busy boy, but I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what I've been up to and then introduce what's going to be coming on today's episode. But yeah, little lager story, nothing too elaborate, but yeah, yesterday was very wet and we are 3 games into the new football season, 2 games if you watch the Premier League, but of course, who cares about the Premier League? It's all about the leagues below it, if you ask me. And my team, Millwall, are in the Championship. Survived last season, and it's been a little bit of a mixed start. But yeah, they played yesterday away to Hull, and it was on telly of the weird time of 12:30 on a Saturday, which I'm not keen on. But anyway, it was really raining and I wanted to watch the game. We did have Sky previously at my house, but then they put the price up and my wife and I were like, no way. So I schlepped into Maidstone Town Centre. Now it's a little bit of a party town. There's a number of pubs and bars and lots of people come to Maidstone for like stag and endos or whatever. So there's a few of these sports bars with multiple screens. So I'm thinking, yeah, all right. I knew there were Premier League games on, but they're bound to have one screen showing Millwall. You know, there's a Maidstone's an hour away from London, like where I grew up on the Surrey-Sussex border. There's a number of people originally from London here, and there's quite a few Millwall supporters. Because I see them out and about, and we give each other the nod. Come on, you lions. Little as you're walking through the street. But yeah, there you go. So there's a number of them. But I missioned it in, got soaking wet, went to the first place. Now I did get there just after kickoff. I went in. This place has got multiple screens. Asked them at the bar if they're showing the Millwall game. They said no. I said, well, any chance you can turn one of the tellies on? And the lady was like, well, everyone's sat down now. I'm like, for fuck's sake. Brighton and Man United was on. Who cares? Anyway, so missioned it around to the next place, which already had bouncers on the door. I said, you showing the Millwall game? And got some jib off the bouncer, a little bit of banter. He's like, well, most people don't regard Millwall as a football team. I was like, oh, yeah, all right, mate, yeah. Anyway, he was all right, to be fair. We had a little bit of banter, but they weren't showing it. They directed me to a little snooker and pool club, which I've never been to. So I went round there and their Wi-Fi weren't working. So no game, right? I didn't know of any other places that were probably going to be showing it. But then I suddenly remembered where I was in this part of Maidstone where this pool and snooker club is. There's a bit more of a forgotten end of town. But when my wife and I moved here, or prior to moving here over 3 years ago now, when we were coming down to look at different houses and stuff, there's this little pub on this street that I was on that I always remember driving past. I was thinking, oh yeah, that looks like a nice little boozer. It's really old. This guy called, it's very ye olde, and it's called the Ye Olde Pig or something like that. I thought, you know what? I suddenly remembered it. I thought, I'm going in. And I went in there, and I was the only one in there, and I had a little chat to the landlord, and it was great. It's a great little bazaar, which I was doing a little bit of reading. It's said to be the oldest building in Maidstone. It dates back to the 1400s, apparently, so it's pretty damn old. It's one of them duck your head when you got to go in, duck or grouse. But it's got like 3 different rooms upstairs. It's really rickety little staircase, which is probably a little bit precarious if you're a bit worse for the wear. I had a great selection of lagers, which is what I'm getting to here. And it had the Paulana, forgive me if I've said that wrong, the dark and light one. And it also had this pint, which I had a pint of. It's a little crafty one, and you may well know that I don't tend to go for the craft beers. I don't know, too much hoppy, or what my brother Dan would call a stinker. Sometimes I just think, I make way too many hops in there. But anyway, there was this Bexley Brewery one, and it was lovely. It was a great pint, one of the best pints I've had in a good while. It's one of these pubs that really takes care, and they change their beers every now and again, and like, I don't know, it was well run. And so I had a pint of this Bexley one. And Bexley, of course, South East London borough, next door to where I previously lived and where I spend half my time, sort of Plumstead, around that area, so on the borders with Greenwich borough. So yeah, I had a lovely little lager from Bexley Brewery. I can't remember the name of it. And then I had a nice lovely little Paulana, dried off in this pub. Had a good little chat to the landlord, looked at some of these weird old pictures on the wall, like old family crests, and there was some kind of tapestry, and it was a wicked little pub, and I'm thinking, yeah, I'm going back there. So it was a little silver lining. Of course, Millwall didn't win. They drew 0-0, but that's their first point of the league season. They didn't concede any goals. Large up Jaffet Tanganga. Yeah, back from suspension, shoring up the back line. But there you go, little lager story to begin with. I appreciate it wasn't that interesting. It was more of a rant, to be honest. Come on, just one TV. We're on Sky. Sky pay all this money to flipping broadcast every game known to man. Just show Millwall. Who cares about Man United? Anyway, there you go. So what's been going on over the last month? Lots and kind of not at the same time. So if you've been following this, I've talked a lot about this show called Love Scripted that I've been working on all this year, really. We had the final show just under 2 weeks ago at Marylebone Theatre. It was really good. Biggest audience we've ever had for a show, and we've done a number of shows now. It's the 3rd year we've done a big London show, plus all the kind of tour shows that we've done. Yeah, it's the biggest audience we've had, and it was the hottest day of the year. It was a Monday evening. But yeah, it was really good. The lads did well. But they're kind of worn out, but they were delighted with it at the end. We had a big kind of presentation thing for all of the boys that have come on the tour, and yeah, it was a really nice evening. We had a great turnout, lots of people we know. I had my friends and family came through. Yeah, it was great. It was a nice way to sign off. When we did this same project last year, it was much more stressful, and we were kind of, by the time we got to the end of the final show, we just wanted to put it to bed. But nah, this one was great. It was a great way to end it. Myself and Catherine Palmer, who I co-lead it with, we went and had a little drink in Wetherspoons in Victoria Station, and it was a great way to end it. So that's all done now. That's that finished for the year. Prior to doing the show on the Monday, we did a final residency at Queen Mary's University. We stayed there for 4 days and cleaned up the final part of the show and rehearsed really non-stop, and it was exhausting. And that was the weekend all that trouble was kicking off around the country. So, you know, with the group that I work with, it just made everything 1,000 times more difficult. We were kind of insulated there, and people weren't tending to look at their phones. It was more the aftermath, to be honest, but it did put the wind up a lot of our guys and a lot of the people that we work with. At one point, we were considering having to get security and, into the venue, but yeah, thankfully none of that transpired, and it all went off really nicely in the end. We got there in the end, so delighted. Next week we take the boys away again for 4 days, but it's just like a residential, like a funsy type thing, one of these activity centers, so they can, you know, play basketball and do rock climbing or whatever. So yeah, they were well earned. So yeah, thank you to everyone that came. Yeah, and next month we start the process all over again, new show. And yeah, so that's kind of what I've been doing. And since then, I've been tinkering around with little poems, having a little bit of fun, trying to get this EP lined up for next month, and also going back to trying to do a lot more voice stuff and doing a bit more learning and just trying now to get some work in the voiceover world. But yeah, that's kind of it really for this update. But I'm going to introduce what I'm going to talk about today, or what you're going to hear. So, Lager Time, the podcast, is hosted on Substack. Substack is I don't know, it's hard to describe it really. It's predominantly used, as far as I'm aware, by writers of varying descriptions, whether they're journalists or fiction writers or whatever. It's kind of like a social network for them. But I host it on there, and when I click a button, it sends the podcast out to all the other platforms like Spotify and Apple, depending on where you're listening to this. But anyway, long story short, if you follow it on Substack, they have a notes section, which is a little bit like Twitter. And for the last couple of months, I've been posting all of these little short poems and stuff and little short stories. Just messing around really, just playing with the form a bit. Some of those that I read out on here last month when I did the Not Quite Live edition. But anyway, I've taken 2 of those and recorded them in the booth and added a little bit of sound design. So I'm playing with little bits of sound. So there'll be 3, 2 of which came off the notes, and one of which is the last one, is a little poem I wrote maybe about 3 years ago. And because all of this stuff was kicking off in the news in the UK here around these riots, and lots of these voices chipping in from, you know, like the right and the left, and everyone's got their perspective. It made me think of that. So I dug it out the archives, edited it a little bit, and yeah, stuck some sound underneath it. So I'm playing around. These are works in progress. I'm just having a bit of fun with it. So that's what you're going to hear, and they're going to roll into each other. So the first one is called On Lockdown, which is just some thoughts on those first few days of the first lockdown in 2020. Well, maybe like the first few months when it got really hot. The second one is called On Laughter. And the third one, which is the one I dug out from 3-4 years ago, is called The Unlicensed Diver. And each one will roll into the next. So that is it. Hopefully you enjoy it. Usual share this if you like it type thing. Yeah, it's on Spotify, it's on Apple and on all of those. Tell your mates or whatever if you want to introduce them to this niche little thing. You can buy me a lager, meaning you can make a little one-off donation. There'll always be a link in the description, or it will be on the email if you get it on Substack. And I've got bits and bobs in my website shop, paulcree.co.uk, and I've recently added an updated voice section on there. And also in October, I think it's October, but October will be Lager Time's 3rd anniversary, believe it or not. It'll be 3 years since I started doing this. I think it was September that I initially set it up and put the first one out in October. It's been a long journey, come a long way. But I don't know. I feel like I should mark it really. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but yeah, I don't know. Any ideas? I could do like a best of flipping this or that. I don't know. Yeah. So any ideas? I don't know. Just send me a message or something in whichever way you want to communicate. But that's it. Enjoy the pieces. Well, I hope you enjoyed them. They're a little bit melancholic, I'd say, but just how it's come out. And yeah, I hope you're enjoying your bank holiday weekend. You will be hearing this at the end of August on the 30th when it goes out. But yeah, hope you're enjoying, you're happy wherever you are. Keep it larger than life. Peas and taters. Oh. I pounded a lot of pavement in those first few months. Little else to do. Everywhere I went, I could smell weed. It was blazing hot. There was something eerie about a sky without planes. It was a different colour blue. A blue I'd not seen before. Maybe that's what it's meant to look like. The quiet was everywhere. Quiet like those occasions when we get heavy snow, as if the white stuff soundproofs the sky. Once or twice a day, these massive Chinook helicopters would come bounding over Plumstead, sometimes 2 or 3 at a time, probably heading to the barracks at Woolwich. I was curious to know, so I walked down there one day, hoping I'd see one land, propellers blowing out the leaves from the trees as some top military brass steps off to be greeted by Secret Service agents holding briefcases. No joy, mate. Just a few dog walkers. And me. Despite the boyhood excitement of seeing those machines quick march overhead, it didn't help with the overall feeling of paranoia that was engulfing me. That feeling of not being in control, or not being told what's really happening. If anything was happening, beyond this forced boredom. A few Thursdays I'd be out running, forgetting about the planned community chorus of pots and pans. It was some noise, mate. Running through the flats over by East Wickham, and suddenly everyone's out on balconies or outside front doors, banging away like a class of unsupervised primary school children let loose on the music room. I ran through, quickly, head down, embarrassed for gate crashing the sentiment. Couldn't help feeling it was all some mass gaslighting exercise. Maybe we all needed something positive to grip onto. Hope was a flapping goldfish in my sweaty palm. Lord knows the news weren't doing it. Switched off from that. Too much data. Somewhere in those number fountains was a truth. It was too overwhelming to sift through all the bluster. One night, I woke up swearing I could hear gunshots and explosions, loads of police sirens and a small chopper whirling around. Is it happening? I thought. It must be happening. What it was, I'd no idea, but I immediately thought about those Chinook helicopters. Maybe all this was building up to this. Whatever this was. Martial law. A government coup. Turns out the old Bill raided a traveller site in nearby Abbey Wood. things got a bit tasty. My wife didn't even hear it. She was fast asleep. And someone later told me those Chinook helicopters were just dropping off mail most days to the barracks. Post. Whatever. They were small moments in the drudge of it all. All the kids around me were cracking up. I wasn't laughing. Sat on the school hall floor while some theatre troupe were prancing around at the front, entertaining us kids in a rare treat. Well, it was meant to be a treat. I don't remember what the show was about. There's a vague memory of some slapstick-style routine. What I do remember, though, was the thoughts going through my mind that so many of these kids seemed infected with something, causing them to go nuts, like those insects you see on wildlife documentaries, all bent up with some parasite that's got inside its brain. I didn't get it. Even at that young age, despite at times being a judgy little prick, I didn't have any pretensions that all humour must tickle me first before anyone else gets to laugh. But this... Some of those kids probably did find it funny. Fair enough. I'd hazard a guess, though, that at least some of them were laughing because others were laughing, which can itself be funny depending on who's around and who's laughing. My brother has a laugh that makes me laugh, even if I don't know what he's laughing about. Some were perhaps laughing because maybe they thought that's what you're meant to do, even if they didn't get it. The worst one, though, the most human one, was that some were laughing, maybe, to demonstrate to the other kids that they understood what was going on. That one bothered me the most, probably because later in life I'd realised there were times when I'd do that same thing. Horrible. Either that, or I was just missing something in all of that jovial melee. Of course, I had no proof for any of this, and felt frustrated that I wasn't enjoying it like everyone else seemed to be. I couldn't deny what was true to me, though. I thought it was weak, whatever it was. Not good enough. I was insulted, little critic that I was. I had the feeling that it could and needed to be a lot better. I was a reluctant rogue state in a sea of compliant nations doing the superstate's bidding. Or some new weapons technology had swept the whole world and I was still fighting with wooden sticks and slingshots, wondering what the fuss was all about. Many years later, in my mid-20s, I won a competition, the prize being a year's membership to a monthly comedy night at the Lyric Hammersmith Theatre, London. Saw a whole bunch of comedians there, some good, some not so. Like with most stand-up, I enjoy it, watching it, but it rarely ever makes me laugh out loud. Most of the laughs I get is when I think about something I've previously seen or talk about it afterwards. The best I usually do during a performance is a raised head and a one-shot sound like a ha. So there I was, packed audience watching some half-assed comedian and everyone around me is infected again, doing the bent-up antact.
My position hadn't changed from the school assembly hall. My arse, via my soul, was hurting. There was some bald middle-aged guy in my row that kept turning to his group. He turned left, then turned right every time the comedian got to some sort of punch. In fact, even during the setup. He let out his louder-than-loud laugh. Why did he have to turn? And was his laugh really that loud? Would he laugh that loud on his own? I'd witnessed similar scenes in what seemed to be performative, over-exaggerated reactions at spoken word nights and battle rap events. It's as if these people were doing it for themselves and their own little groups, checking in to make sure each one was on the same page. I heard it in the laughs, in the clicks of fingers, in the whoops and hollers, in the tears. Yeah, I was always that same kid, sat trying to get on board with this thing presented to me, but it was way out of reach, or I didn't understand it, or it just weren't very good. Maybe I am just too judgy, too absent, or just a miserable prick. Probably all of the above. I remember getting that irritating itch back at school, so difficult to locate and scratch, from playground spats to classroom analysis, often left with the thought, there's more to this than what's being said. Just never quite knew what it was. Some other texture and taste I weren't getting from that simple food I was instructed to swallow. Got older and felt the same about the news and everyday views I'd hear out and about. At the pubs, the shops, the taxi, the gym, the office and in the home. Felt stupid when I aired mine, unformed and messy, like a piece of homework produced on the bus. I'd produce my 2p's worth and instantly feel out of my depth, like I took a bath, shut my eyes and woke up fighting a storm in the North Atlantic. Embarrassed, I'd retreat inside my own mess and curse my curiosity. Give it a day or two and the feeling resumed. Didn't know what to do, so I took to diving. With no license, just a bunch of erratic thoughts and a thirst for something more. I've unearthed a few things that muddied the waters of what I'm led to believe, so I regularly return to the depths to resume my search, not quite knowing what I'm looking for. Each time I come up for air, I find the land more divided, spliced up and taking sides. Status seekers and self-publicists, political mules nudged into reactions, nudged into action, armed with their half-truths, cherry-picked data grenades firing at will, desperate to catch a dart from the opposing side so they can spin it out the stratosphere. Sealing off access routes to alternative views, dogmatic with diminishing returns. Seen the distance between them turn from stream to river with the banks threatening to burst. I'm back at school again. Still itching, still scratching, still searching, still diving. With no idea what it is I seek. I just know it's not this.
It's lager time! Yay! Lager time. Poems, stories and thoughts. By me, Paul Cree. Who else?